Wine and Crime contains graphic and explicit content which may not be suitable for some listeners. Listener discretion is advised. You are listening to Wine and Crime, the podcast where three friends chug wine, chat true crime, and unleash their worst Minnesotan accents. This week, we have a couple more case updates for you, and for episode 354, we are going to be discussing some instances of almost getting away with murder. With the wide breadth of solved and unsolved cases we've covered over the years, new evidence and information sometimes finds its way to our virtual doorstep, usually sent in by you, the Wine Coven, and that really shakes up the makeup of the case coverage provided in the initial episode. So today, we bring you Almost Getting Away with Murder case updates. But first, let's get into our pairing for this week's episode. Our pairing this week is gross and buckle up. So we found the Jinx Cocktail. Again, this is like the grossest thing I've ever seen. And if you want to mix things up, this recipe does call for 7-Up, but you could easily sub that out with sparkling wine if you want to cut the sweetness, up the booziness, and just incorporate that wine element into your recipe. So what you're gonna need for this, you're gonna need vodka. You're gonna need 7-Up, or like I said, sparkling wine. You're gonna need blueberry schnapps. You're gonna need Bailey's Irish Cream and Shyamalan Twist. You're gonna need grape juice, okay? So you're gonna pour in 5 ounces of Bailey's, 10 ounces of blueberry schnapps, 20 ounces of vodka, 10 ounces of grape juice, and then top that bad boy off with some Sprite, some 7-Up. You stir it up, you pour it over ice, and you gulp it down. You gulp it down. As always, we very much appreciate the listeners who send in these updates, and we love hearing about it and can't always follow everything. So thank you for doing that for us. And if you have updates on any cases we've covered over the years, please submit them on the contact page of our website, wineandcrimepodcast.com, or email us at wineandcrimepodcast@gmail.com with the subject line, Case Update.
This next clip is from episode 114, Mistrial Murders. This one was bonks.
Rules regarding mistrials are different in different countries. Obviously, they have different judicial systems. So just as a kind of an example of a very bizarre mistrial and how they handle that kind of shit in Canada.
Oh, I love Canada.
Canada, America's hat.
Top of the hat.
Keeping us warm. This is from a 2010 article from The Star, which is a Canadian publication. And the headline is Crown, which I'm assuming that just means
that's like the state or like the
it's
federal
referring
government.
to a state prosecutor in this context. So Crown, quote, making strange faces causes murder mistrial.
Oh, please. Some people can't help that.
Yeah, that's just my face. They used to call me old rubber face at my old job.
Yeah, some people are very expressive. Looking at you, my friend Kelly.
Well, I do have a picture.
Control it.
I have a picture of this guy on the drive. So
Are you serious?
yeah, but I don't want you to look at it quite yet.
Okay.
So this is regarding the case, the death of 2-year-old Emily Lucas. Very sad.
Oh.
So on Monday, this is all quotes from the article. On Monday, the jury was dismissed in the second mistrial in the case against Erica Mendieta, Emily's mother, who was charged with second-degree murder in the toddler's death. A prosecutor from the first trial, Assistant Crown Attorney Paul Alexander, distracted the jury and intimidated the defendant by making faces while sitting in the gallery as a spectator.
Oh.
Okay, that is odd.
So he wasn't even...
I don't like that.
He wasn't even the attorney in this specific case. He was the attorney in the first case that resulted in a mistrial. He was just sitting in the audience making fucking faces.
Fuck? Go away, dude.
I know.
Like, don't.
Quote, I've been
Okay.
involved in the criminal justice system for 30 years, and I can't say that I've heard of similar circumstances, says Attorney General Chris Bentley. It's just very, very unusual. Last week, the jury wrote a note to Justice Nola Garton stating that they wanted a man removed from the gallery. Quote, we find him very distracting and he's making strange faces all the time. We feel very uncomfortable with him. They did not know at the time who Alexander was. So they didn't realize that he was the attorney from the first trial.
Damn. Is he a chameleon? Why can't-
Well, you can go to the drive now and look at it. It's
He's a man in this hat.
He's a man in
Oh
the
my
hat.
God.
He looks like a
No,
fucking
he is
villain.
not.
He looks like a villainous what's that guy's name? Indiana Jones.
Oh, yeah.
He does look like he would be Indiana
you know
Jones's,
who he
like,
looks
nemesis.
like? He looks like a portlier version of the villain from The Rescuers Down Under.
Yes,
Totally.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
This guy hunts rare eagles.
He
And
hunts
his
rare
scarf
eagles.
For
is
fun.
hideous.
Golden eagles.
Joanna!
Oh my God. Joanna!
Where are my eggs?
Oh my God, I forgot. I'm sweating. I need to take my
We
shirt
need
off.
to watch that movie. Yeah, should we go topless again?
Take your top off.
I
No,
mean,
it's like
maybe.
winter here. I'm good.
Okay, so the defense counsel brought forth a motion for a mistrial, and Mendieta testified. So that was the mother. That was the mother who was accused of killing her daughter. So Mendieta testified in the jury's absence that Alexander was rolling his eyes, shifting awkwardly, and making faces during Crown Attorney Allison McPherson's
Yep.
cross-examination.
Literally,
Elle
that
McPherson's
still,
cross-examination.
Yeah.
that still photo of him. It looks like you could see him moving in the
Yeah,
photo,
I know.
like
Yeah,
shifting
his-
his eye, rolling his fucking eyes, and being a little
Any
creep
photo
dick.
of this man is a gif.
And I looked for more photos of him because I wanted to find a photo of him making that creepy fucking face, but there weren't any. And I didn't find any more photos of him. But this one was like honestly creepy enough. So Mendieta
creepy.
says his look intimidated me a lot. It made me feel very uncomfortable. And then she said that it made her nervous and it changed the way that she answered her questions during her cross-examination. So that's a big deal.
Mistrial, for sure. For sure.
She said that she didn't know she had the ability to challenge his presence in the court until the jury wrote that note.
Wow.
So an investigation was launched. Quote, we're trying to get this prosecution back on as quickly as possible. It's a serious case, and it's important that we do that. So her first trial ended with just a hung jury. There wasn't an issue of this dude making weird fucking faces.
Oh,
And
so
then-
this is the second trial was another mistrial because of
Yep.
this dude.
Yep. So experts say that it's unlikely that Mendieta, age 34, can reasonably expect a third trial to be fair. Quote, it's subject to the law of diminishing returns, says Alan Young, a law professor at Osgood Hall. Each successive trial has the potential to become less reliable. It's very important in law to get it right the first time around, he said, noting that the United Kingdom has a strict policy to cut it off after 2 trials, whereas Canada assesses it on a case-by-case basis.
Wow.
So
I think
thought
it would depend on the place. Like, if you're in London, you can find jurors, presumably, unless it's like a major case, you can find fresh jurors and it's not an issue. But if you're in like
the Yukon
even know.
territories.
Licky end.
Yeah,
Looking in.
exactly. Where they're like limited potential jurors to begin with, then I could see that being really hard.
Well, I don't even think it's a matter of sourcing jurors. It's just a matter of going over the same shit and like leaving room for stories to change. And it's also another thing when you're hearing the other side's evidence, how you can rework your evidence. I know that they're supposed to share anyway, but it's probably different when you're actually in trial. So Frank Adiero, former president of the Criminal Lawyers Association, said that repeated prosecution of an individual for the same offense can become an abusive process, which I absolutely agree
Like
with.
Curtis fucking Flowers.
Well, that's why we have this double jeopardy clause. So if you're just declaring mistrial after mistrial after mistrial, then in some people's eyes, that's a violation of that Fifth Amendment.
And it absolutely can be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He said, when the line is crossed depends on the length of time since the charge was laid, the conduct of the Crown, so the state, the nature of the charge, and the effect on the defendant's fair trial rights. On Monday, Mendietta's defense lawyers tabled a motion to allow Garton, that's the judge, to rule on the case alone based on evidence already heard. The unusual proposal would save the courts the cost of another jury trial, but it seems difficult considering Garton, the judge, already said Alexander's behavior affected Mendietta's demeanor on the stand. Garton says in her ruling, this makes the assessment of Miss Mendietta's credibility somewhat problematic for the triers of fact. So yeah, this case has been totally fucked up, and this asshole attorney who was not involved in the second trial, he was just there as an observer, was fucking with the jury, was fucking with the defendant.
That fucker should get disbarred.
Seriously, it's just so not right on so many levels.
Like, if you cannot conduct yourself ethically and professionally, then you should not be able to do that job.
I could see it being very subjective and something that the defense attorneys latch onto and spin it as like, this was outrageous behavior, blah, 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 blah. And I could also see it as like, he attended one day of the new trial and acted totally fine. You know what I mean? We weren't there.
I get what you're saying.
The jury had a problem with him.
Yeah, the jury was the one who initiated him getting asked to be removed because it wasn't. I'm assuming it wasn't just one day. It wasn't just one person's impression of him. It was the entire jury, and it was so disruptive that they fully requested from the judge to have him removed.
Yeah, this guy's a fuck. I don't like him.
To it. Yeah, totally. Yeah. But I could see in other instances, like, it being very subjective and the defense just, like, using it.
I agree. Yeah. So just one more quick little shallow dive, just because you all might be actually familiar with this case. This is another one from a 2017 article from the Boston Globe about the burning death of 19-year-old Jessica Chambers. A man named Quentin Tellis was on trial. So the jurors go deliberate after closing remarks, and then they come back with a verdict, as, you know, you would expect. And
as you are wont to do.
If these names sound familiar, Jessica's case was the subject of the Oxygen documentary show Unspeakable Crime, The Killing of Jessica Chambers, hashtag Justice for Jessica. It's this case.
Okay.
So this is from that article. Before the decision was read, Judge Gerald Chatham asked if the 12-person panel had unanimously agreed on a verdict. A male juror spoke the shocking words, "We didn't all agree." That started a chain of events that led to a hung jury and a mistrial in the murder trial of Quentin Tellis, and sparked a wave of emotions for his family and the relatives of Jessica Chambers, understandably. For the Chambers family, it ended up being pain and frustration. For the relatives of Tellis, it was relief and joy. After the verdict disagreement, the judge asked the panel to continue deliberating. So he's like, okay, come back with this fucking verdict that's supposed to be unanimous. Go back to your room and keep talking about this.
Make it work.
Make it work.
Do your job.
Make it work. Shortly,
Tim Gunn as a judge. Make it work.
Shortly afterward, a court clerk read what was believed to be the final verdict. Once again, not guilty. Tellis's relatives smiled. Chambers' family cried. Then the judge polled the jury just to be safe. Well, actually, they have to do that anyway. You have to go down the row and say, yes, 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 I think that he's guilty or innocent or whatever. So he polled the jury, 7 for guilty, 5 for not guilty. So once again, this was not fucking unanimous, and where is the disconnect?
What the fuck? How did that...
Let me tell you.
They all
I assume
did
you're gonna
integrated
answer.
math.
Yeah.
I loved integrated math. I will stick by it.
Incredible.
Spectators looked at each other in dismay. How could the verdict be not guilty if 7 people said guilty? The jury had been instructed by the judge that under the capital murder charge, all 12 of them must agree on a guilty verdict. But the instructions did not say that the entire panel of 7 black individuals and 5 white individuals must also unanimously agree on a not guilty verdict. So this was an issue of semantics. There was a typo in the judge's instructions. He said that they had to agree unanimously on a guilty verdict, but he did not say that the not guilty verdict had to be unanimous as well.
Oh,
Okay.
Jesus Christ.
So they thought if there was at least one fly in the ointment for not guilty, it was not guilty.
I mean, the hairs that are split in a jury room like that, I can testify.
It's gotta be so
that
intense.
you are talking about the rules and the minutia of what's given to you by the judge, like, extensively.
Well, I mean, that makes sense because you are literally deciding the fate of, like, someone's life and how that affects all the other lives that crime, you know, touched.
And the rules for unanimity for juries, I think, can vary depending on the charge. I
Sure.
don't think it has to be unanimous all the time.
For like petty theft.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know for sure. I'm not a fucking lawyer, but you know, they give the instructions, and if there's something left out, then there's questions, and then that just snowballs into the jury having some sort of assumed understanding of what they're doing and talking about, and it's like fucking not. So
Right.
okay, so let's see. With corrected instructions in hand, it didn't take long for the jury to tell the judge that it was hopelessly deadlocked. A mistrial was declared. Because then, of course, at that point, in your mind, the discussion's over. It's hard to get back into it. Defense lawyer Alton Peterson called the events very unusual. I've never seen that happen before, he said, Alton Peterson has 19 years of experience, so it's unusual. The district attorney said at the time that Tellis would be retried. A second jury was unable to come to a unanimous decision in the next trial, which was 1 year later. Meanwhile, Tellis was serving a 5-year sentence for a burglary conviction, and he was also charged during that time frame with the stabbing death of 34-year-old Meng Chun Tsao.
Wow.
Nailed it. As far as I can tell, currently he's awaiting that trial and also a third trial for the Chambers case. So,
Well, at least he's in prison awaiting all this stuff.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
But he's in a whole heap of trouble, and if these mistrials continue, then you're not helping anyone, jury.
Yeah.
Also, you can ask for clarification from the judge when you're deliberating.
Right.
So it's too bad that didn't come up, you know? You can ask questions.
Yeah, but I could see something like so semantically, what seems so small to like the average person, not even thinking to ask that question.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
Right.
Anyway.
All right.
So that's
Well,
my seg.
In
girl.
depth. Good
Yeah.
job.
This next clip is from episode 126, No Man's Land. And when I tell you I think about this a lot, I do. This is my Roman Empire. It is crazy to me that we let national parks get away with this shit. But actually, on that note, I have an update for us. So stick around to the end of this segment and I will give you that update.
You know I like to instruct you how to get away with murder.
Yep. We do know this.
Here
That's
we
why
go.
we're all on a list.
If you want to kill someone and get away with it, you should do it in the 50 square mile zone of Yellowstone National Park that is located in the state of Idaho. I have a picture because I know that all three of us are kind of geographically challenged. So go to the drive. This will be on the blog. There's a map showing Yellowstone National Park, and then there's like a strip along the northern and western edge that falls into Montana.
Yep.
And then there's also a strip on the bottom western edge that falls in Idaho.
Yep.
So keep that in mind.
Okay.
This zone, that specifically the zone in Idaho, is called the Zone of Death.
Oh, and it's a lovely violet color. Pale violet.
A violent violet.
A dusty violet.
So dusty.
So in the zone of death, there are no roads, and most importantly, there are no permanent human inhabitants.
Hello.
The Sixth
Sounds like my
Amendment.
dream neighborhood.
Well, don't fucking go here.
That shadowy place.
The Sixth Amendment of the United States Constitution dictates that a jury must be comprised of people who live in both the state and the federal district where the crime was committed. The park is within the jurisdiction of Wyoming, because I guess they couldn't really split it up the way that the law is now.
Okay.
But this area is in the state of Idaho, and no one lives in this overlapping area, so no jury could be formed. So this case, if there was this hypothetical murder case, could never go to trial. The park itself is federal land, so the case could not simply be Idaho's problem for like a variety of reasons.
So this is all theoretical. No one's tested this yet. Or am I
There
wrong?
was a case. There was a case. It wasn't a murder case, but it was a guy who illegally shot an elk. So he was arrested for it and he went to trial. But like the state really could have played their cards to get this loophole fixed at that time and set a responsible precedence for this whole situation. But they completely dropped the ball. The guy ended up taking a plea deal. Something I don't really remember. So there is a precedent for it, but not when it comes to homicide.
Okay.
Yet.
Okay.
In 2005, Michigan State University law professor Brian Kalt wrote a paper titled The Perfect Crime, which outlines this entire anomaly in the context of a homicide.
Sounds like Brian Colt is your soulmate. Sorry, Corey.
I know, right? I actually fell in love with him a little bit while reading this, while researching this. It was published in the Georgetown Law Journal, and he also sent it to multiple government authorities to alert them of this potentially very hazardous loophole. And as far as I can tell, to this day, nothing has been done to fix it.
Okay.
So here's an excerpt from a 2016 Vox article by Dylan Matthews. Quote, "The article's release and subsequent press blitz didn't accomplish anything. Then Senator Larry Craig, who's a Republican in Idaho, promised to look into the issue but did not do anything beyond that. Representative Mike Simpson, also a Republican in Idaho, who is still in office, actually was in office as of 2016. I didn't bother to check to see if that was still correct, stated through a spokesperson that he didn't think the zone of death was a problem and argued that we could, quote, count on checks and balances to remedy the issue should a murder be committed, a response which betrays a marked lack of understanding of what the term checks and balances actually refers to.
For sure. Yeah.
I feel like a lot of government officials forget what that actually means.
Or that it theoretically exists.
Yeah, true on both counts.
Theoretically. So not only did my future husband, Brian Kalt, send his paper to the people who could actually fucking fix it before his paper was published, he also literally wrote draft legislative language that would close this loophole, but the government agencies in both Idaho and Wyoming and also federal agencies are unwilling to take action. He wrote it out. They had to copy and paste it into, like, the law. That's literally all they had to do.
Copy, paste, vote.
Yeah. Okay, so why might they be unwilling to take action, you may ask? Here is another excerpt from that Vox article. But another point the Department of Justice made was more consequential. Quote, splitting Yellowstone into the district courts for Wyoming, Idaho, and Montana would also split it between the 9th and 10th circuits, my boyfriend Brian Kalt writes.
Brian, he thinks of everything.
Yeah. Senator Mike Enzi, a Republican from Wyoming, and others were wary of this because it would create a new and unwelcome burden if environmentalists could use this foothold to challenge the Park Service's management decisions in the liberal and quirky 9th Circuit. So they want to keep the park under
exclusively the jurisdiction of the 10th Circuit, which is more conservative, which is less likely to, I don't know, fucking protect the environment in the park.
Stop them from drilling for oil.
Fracking.
Correct. Whatever you think about the idea that keeping environmental cases out of a liberal court is worth leaving the zone of death in place, it just isn't true that fixing the loophole would necessarily allow venue shopping for appeals about Yellowstone. As Cult writes, there is nothing to preclude Congress from designating the 10th Circuit as the proper venue for all administrative appeals concerning Yellowstone National Park. So, yes, that's a possible reason that they want to keep it in the jurisdiction of the 10th Circuit, but as long as they're rewriting the legislation concerning the park anyway, they could easily just slip in, OPS, it's going to remain under control of the 10th Circuit.
Right.
It's just like they don't fucking understand the problem and how they could fix it because there's no fucking reason they don't fix it.
Okay, so here's my update on the zone of death. And this is from an Idaho Capital Sun article from February of 2022. And I haven't been able to find like a super update on it since then, and I will explain why. But this is from that article. Quote, Representative Colin Nash from Boise is sponsoring House Joint Memorial 3, which calls on Congress to close the zone of death loophole. So Nash says, quote, what this joint memorial does is it says to Congress, fix this legal loophole that exists, put this 50 square mile section of Yellowstone National Park into the federal judicial district of the state of Idaho. God, that's a tongue twister. So that we maintain jurisdiction and can seat a constitutionally legitimate jury to try people who may commit crimes in that swath of Yellowstone Park. So when asked if this memorial would actually move Congress into fixing the loophole, Nash replied, quote, we can try our darndest. So it's a memorial? I don't know. It's not like a bill. It's not a resolution. It doesn't have the force of law behind it. But House Joint Memorial 3 did pass in March of 2022. It is currently unclear how much effect that it had because, after all, it being a memorial, it was intended to raise awareness about the issue and spur Congress into taking action at the federal level because they couldn't do anything at the state level. It's a memorial. So if anyone has an update on this, please let me know because I'm very curious. I feel like we would have heard about it if Congress did something. Also, it would have come up in my Google search just now. But yeah, raising awareness. We got our little crossed ribbon for the zone of death now. And hopefully it does get fixed because this is a criminal playground and we should take it seriously. Now let's take a quick break and hear a word from our sponsors.
Resolutions are all about you. And Brooklyn Inn wants to make sure you are investing in yourself this year. And your biggest self-care investment is sleep, baby. So why not upgrade your night routine now with Brooklyn Inn's award-winning home essentials?
Yeah, and if you've been listening to this show for a while, you've definitely heard us talk about Brooklyn Inn before, and that's because we love them. And you know how like that feeling when you go to like a hotel and you just slip into that fresh, clean bed with like smooth, soft, silky, breathable linens. That is how all of my sheets feel now.
Yep.
Because I have stocked up on Brooklyn Inn sheets.
You have, babe.
I have. And I start, like before we had Brooklyn Inn as a sponsor, I think I had 2 sets of sheets. And they weren't that great to begin with.
Sure.
So I'm all about luxury, especially in 2024, people. It is a new year. It is a new you. You got to try their sheets. You got to try their bath towels.
I'm obsessed with their bath towels.
I'm a very big fan of their bath towels. They got candles. They got eye masks. It's basically like home essentials mixed with self-care. You got to start your year off on the right foot. You got to set the tone for the rest of 2024, which is why you should make that bedding swap that you have been eyeing. Brooklyn Inn's bedding bundles are customizable with high-quality sheets, comforters, and so much more to make any room feel new for 2024.
I love it. So start the year off right by investing in yourself with Brooklinen's sleep and self-care essentials. Visit in-store or online at brooklinen.com. That's BROOKLINEN.com. And use code GALS for $20 off your order of $100 or more. That's BROOKLINEN.com. Use promo code GALS for $20 off and treat your sheets.
Right. Do you ever check your bank statement and you just see subscription after subscription and you don't really know what it is, and it's nominal amounts. It's $5 here, $8 there, $9.99. But that stuff really adds up, and if you don't know exactly what you're paying for, it can be A, mystifying, and B, frustratingly expensive.
Yeah.
So that is why we have partnered with Rocket Money, because it is this beautiful oracle that tells you what you're paying for, how much you're paying, and you can decide whether or not you want to keep that subscription. And cherry on top, if you don't want to keep it, Rocket Money helps you cancel it with the click of a button.
Rocket Money is amazing. It's a personal finance app that finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills. So I can see all of my subscriptions in one place, and if I see something I don't want, don't need anymore, forgot I had, I can cancel it with a tap. I never have to get on the phone with customer service, which, as a millennial with phone anxiety, talk about a gift from heaven. They'll even try to get you a refund for the last couple months of wasted money and negotiate to lower your bills for you by up to 20%. All you have to do is take a picture of your bill, and Rocket Money takes care of the rest. And Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has helped save its members an average of $720 a year with over $500 million in canceled subscriptions. That's wild.
That's so much money.
That's a trip. You could have a really nice weekend away for that almost $1,000.
Absolutely.
Hi.
Stop wasting money on things you don't use. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions by going to rocketmoney.com/gals. That's rocketmoney.com/gals. One more time, rocketmoney.com/gals. And treat your subscriptions.
Trade them. Welcome back, and thank you again so much to our sponsors. First off, we will be revisiting the case of Oscar Pistorius from 257 Amputee Crimes, released on February 17th, 2022, which is a name you have probably been hearing a lot more in the news lately, but don't worry, I'll be jumping back in at the end to provide the most recent updates on this case.
Okay, get on with it. I'm ready. We're ready for your case.
Okay, this was a fan pick brought to you by fanpicker Kristen, and you will have definitely heard about it, but it's still important to cover, and we're not going to be able to cover every single part of it because it was a huge story in the news, and we're going to cover as much of it as we can cover.
Are we going to be missing parts?
Oh my God.
Okay, so Oscar Leonard Carl Pistorius was born on...
God, this guy.
Yeah, November 22nd, 1986 in Johannesburg, South Africa. Ever heard of it?
Weird.
His family was Afrikaner with some Italian ancestry. That means that they were descended from white Dutch people that lived in South Africa for a very long time.
Yeah.
And they speak Afrikaans.
Really cool
And English.
language, though.
Well, it's like Dutch-ified.
Yeah.
It sounds really bizarre to the uninitiated, and I love it.
Yeah. When he was 11 months old, both of his lower legs had to be amputated below the knee because of a congenital defect, and he had been born missing the outside of both feet and both fibulae, which I don't really understand that sentence.
Interesting.
So his feet were just super narrow. Missing the outside bones of the feet.
I don't know. I don't know the answer, but there was something.
We are doctors.
Fibulae.
That caused the when he was a baby, they were like, okay, this makes sense to amputate both lower legs below the knee.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So the fibulae. So the bottom part of your leg, you have the main part, and then you have a skinnier part on the out, alongside it. That skinnier part is the fibula.
Oh, so this was a missing part of his leg?
Both.
And
Didn't you
foot.
say, so basically the outside portion. So it's just the 2 bones straight down in the leg and just 1 bone out in the foot. Because your leg has a secondary skinny bone and your feet also has secondary side bones.
So he didn't have that secondary bone.
He just had real skinny legs and feet.
Whatever. He's 11 months old. So he has no recollection of a time before his double amputation.
Gotcha.
At 13 months old, he was fitted with prosthetic feet, and within a few months, he learned to walk. So kind of, I don't know when babies learn to walk, but I feel like right on time. I don't know. Don't at me.
6. I don't know.
Yeah, there's such a wide array of what's like quote unquote normal in terms of development.
Whatever.
I
He's
wouldn't
walking
even
as
know
a baby,
range.
as a toddler, with his prosthetics. Despite his disability, Pistorius excelled as an athlete throughout his childhood, and by the time he was in high school, he had distinguished himself at rugby, water polo, tennis, and boxing. Big athlete. Sports especially became a refuge for him during a handful of different childhood tragedies. So, number 1, his parents divorced when he was 6, and whatever, no big deal, but that can be traumatic for some people. Also,
It's kind of a big deal.
I know. I just have so little sympathy for this man because he is a piece of shit.
Yeah, but people whose parents get divorced when they're a young age is oftentimes traumatic.
Whatever. Apparently, it can be traumatic. I don't fucking know. So, his father was absent from his life. Oh, that must be hard. And then when he was 15, his mother...
Kenyon's like, mine was too, but I didn't kill anybody.
Yeah. I didn't become an abuser. It's fine. This one is tough. When he was 15, his mother, whom he was very close to, because she basically raised him as a single parent, died from a drug reaction following a hysterectomy. So just kind of like a freak.
Yeah.
Right.
Unexpected.
For what should be a pretty common procedure. And
my mom had a hysterectomy when I was 12. You know,
It's a standard thing.
Yeah.
What year was that? Was that in modern times?
Well, think about how old we were when we were 14.
Yeah, so early 2000s.
Yeah. Okay. How old we were when we were 14. Got it.
What year it was.
Yeah.
I followed it.
I know.
It's fine. So in 2003, after suffering a knee injury that forced him to quit rugby, the fact that he could play rugby with prosthetics is pretty amazing because rugby is just such a physical and violent sport. But anyway.
Probably helped that he had prosthetics since he was walking
at all.
Yeah, he
doesn't know any other way to get around.
But still, rugby's intense.
So he discovered running and, quote, never looked back.
Run, Forrest.
So he was fitted with high-performance racing blades that were called flex foot cheetahs and began finishing sprint races in astonishingly fast times for a double amputee. He competed in both sprint events for below-knee amputees as well as non-disabled sprint events. So he was running in
just any event. Yeah.
Both.
Wasn't there controversy of whether those particular prosthetics were
performance enhancing?
We will get to it.
Okay.
Yes. He kind of got the name, he would later get the name Blade Runner because of the type of prosthetics that he used for running were called racing blades, whatever. After he became a Paralympic champion, Pistorius sought to enter non-disabled international races, but he immediately began encountering obstacles. So in particular, the International Association of Athletic Federations argued that the prosthetics that he used for racing, the blades, which were different from his everyday prosthetics, these were designed for running.
Right.
Actually gave him an unfair advantage over non-amputee athletes, which I kind of see their point.
Right.
I do too, because they're made for running.
They're made to propel more so than I think
a foot
would be. And also I don't know this for sure, but I am speculating that they might weigh less than a leg and a lower leg and foot.
Yeah, maybe have some spring type technology.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you're kind of like bionic at that point.
Right. I kind of see their point.
Yeah. I do. Is that bad? I totally see their point.
Yeah.
But ultimately, Pistorius overcame these objections and was allowed to compete in these events. So at the 2011 World Championships in athletics, he became the first amputee to win a non-disabled world track medal.
Wow.
He then qualified for the 2012 Summer Olympics, making him the first double-leg amputee participant and only the 10th athlete in history to compete in both the Paralympic and the Olympic Games.
Dang.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I don't think one's athletic prowess or disability counteracts their shittiness as a human being.
Sure. No.
But
Surely not.
one for the record books. Okay. So these achievements skyrocketed him to international fame. He signed several lucrative endorsement deals and was the subject of numerous profiles in major publications. He was a big fucking deal. He was Blade Runner. He was on the cover of magazines. Big fucking deal.
He's a hero.
Yeah.
Well, plus
And-
the controversy, like everyone had heard of him.
Right. There was controversy. He was like handsome. It was just everything. So these profiles highlighted not just his athletic abilities, but his intense and often risk-seeking personality.
Oh, great.
Which risk-seeking can also be like a side effect of trauma and PTSD.
Totally.
There are a lot of like vitamins that come back from war who then, go through a period of like really high, intense risk-seeking behavior.
Could also be a sign of psychopathy.
It could also be that.
I don't know.
More
I
wine
prefer
to
not
get
to
through
ever
this.
risk anything ever.
No.
It's too risky.
I don't know why you do that to yourself.
No, I'm good.
Why challenge yourself?
I
Right.
love my couch.
Yup.
Oh, God.
So as one 2011 New York Times profile put it, quote, he liked fast cars and fast motorcycles and fast boats, and he sometimes veered towards recklessness.
And fast women.
Well, no, don't say
And
that.
fast prosthetics.
I was just expecting that to be the next
I was
when you,
too.
thing
When
in
you,
this
when you
super
hear fast
misogynistic.
cars
Yeah.
and da-da-da, your brain finishes the sentence.
Right.
Goes to loose women.
Well, don't say
fast women.
na 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 na
I know.
na.
I'm not referencing the victim of his crimes. I'm
Right.
referencing the shitty writing of this
Right.
article.
Okay,
Yeah.
correct. Fine. I'll
And the
take it.
gross phrase that is loose women.
Fast women. Get it right.
I know. I'm grossing you out.
Okay. Who sings Fast Car?
Tracy
Oh,
Chapman.
yes.
Yeah,
That's
different.
a phenomenal
So sad.
song.
Oh my God, I cry every time. Okay. A detail that came up often in profiles of Pistorius was a 2009 incident in which he crashed a speedboat into a submerged pier, fracturing 2 ribs, his jaw, and his eye socket.
Oh, stop, dude.
He got into
Fuck.
a major boating accident. And police found alcohol in the boat, but they didn't check his blood alcohol level at the scene because of his like extensive injuries. So then he kind of like got away with it because they couldn't
That it was too
prove
late.
that he had
Yep.
been drinking.
At
But
the
like
time.
he had definitely fucking been drinking when he majorly fucking crashed this speedboat.
Also, a busted eye socket is one of those injuries that I just like.
Yeah, not good.
Yeah.
Not good.
So, several journalists who interviewed Pistorius around this time also noted that his intensity sometimes crossed the line into paranoia.
You don't say.
After a reporter named Jonathan McAvoy visited him at his home in Pretoria, which is kind of like an Afrikaner stronghold city in South Africa. It's north of Johannesburg. It's close to Johannesburg, but it's another major city, and like a lot of Afrikaners live there.
So it's a very white city.
Yeah, I mean, yes. More or less, yes. So he wrote in the Daily Mail that, quote, in Oscar's bedroom lay 1 cricket bat and 1 baseball bat behind the door, a revolver by his bed, and a machine gun by the window.
Honey,
It's
By
all
the
a bit
window?
much.
that's gross that it was by the window.
Yeah.
It's-
It's all gross.
It's a fucking bit much. And also, I don't know for sure, but like, I fucking know for sure that he definitely lived in like a gated
right.
complex with
He
guards.
does not need this
No.
level of. No.
You're not out there like, yes, in South Africa there's high crime and people, criminal gangs can get past security guards and rob or whatever inside complexes. That does happen, but like
That's paranoia.
it's a bit
This
much.
is fucking excessive. Yeah.
So in 2012, another reporter named Michael Sokolov visited Pistorius at home to interview him for a profile in the New York Times Magazine. In this profile, he relates a story that Pistorius tells him about grabbing one of his guns in the middle of the night and tiptoeing downstairs to confront a possible intruder after his security alarm went off. And this turned out to be a false alarm. But he's already like telling this profiler that like this is something that he does.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas like with Zach, if I hear a noise and I like try to wake him up, he does absolutely fucking nothing.
Right.
He's like, it's fine, it's fine. Like there could be an intruder in the room and he'd be like, it's fine.
It's the wind. It's Josie.
That's kind of why I don't want to fix my super old floors because I can hear Ray walking up the stairs or like through. It's so creaky.
You need the creaking.
I love it.
Yeah. And like, just for context, like after living in South Africa, like we keep a golf club, by the bed in case there's an intruder. I feel like that's a level of like, in case there's an intruder precaution.
Yeah, and honestly, that's mostly for just like peace.
Gun.
That's just for peace of mind. You're not like a machine gun is super offensive. You know what I mean?
I mean,
it's really aggressive.
I think you're nuts, but yeah, I get it.
Whatever. So it's a golf club, whatever. So this detail would take on an eerie significance just 1 year later. So
Don't like an eerie significance. Don't like that.
In the early morning hours of February 14th, 2013, so Valentine's Day, Pistorius called for emergency medical help, claiming that he had accidentally shot his girlfriend, Riva Steenkamp, believing her to be an intruder. Pistorius and Riva Steenkamp had been dating for only about 3 months at this point, so it was a very fresh relationship. He was 26, she was 29. She had been a very successful model since she was in her teens. She'd appeared in numerous like high-profile ad campaigns, several reality TV shows. She's very well known in South Africa. She was like the face of some cosmetic brand in South Africa, maybe like Avon or something. Like she was a very successful working model. She also was like a fixture on like the Johannesburg social scene, and she had recently graduated from law school.
She was way pretty. I remember seeing pictures of her.
Stunningly beautiful and brilliant, and also like kind. And she had overcome a lot of her own very serious physical obstacles in her past because she had also been an avid horseback rider, and then she fell and broke her back in her early 20s.
Wow.
And she had to relearn how to walk.
Wow. Oh, honey.
So they had like that too. They were both like high profile, very, very pretty people who had like endured a lot and found each other, and, on paper seemed like a great
match made in heaven.
But, you never know what a relationship is like behind closed doors. So on February 13th, just a few hours before her death, because he called police the early morning hours of the 14th, she sent Pistorius a text message that read, quote, "You are an amazing person with so many blessings, and you are more than cared for." And he replied, "Stay tonight if you like." Pistorius would later recount how there's going to be a lot in here about like his version of events. But like,
are we doubting this text message?
No.
Well, the texts are finite. Like that's kind of, you can't.
Well,
we're not doubting the text messages. They'd been dating for 3 months, and he invited her to stay the night. And they were sending kind of lovey-dovey texts. But there are also other texts that point to issues.
I still have Brian Laundrie fresh on my mind. So like, I didn't know if he took her phone and like planted some misleading texts or whatever. Okay.
No, that's not not in this case. So I just want to preface it like, there's going to be a lot of like his version of events. Which
and
are
she's not around to
and
advocate
she's not
for
around
herself.
to advocate for herself, and his version of events are not fucking true. But we're just gonna say them here, but take everything with a fucking grain of salt. So Pistorius would later recount how he was awakened by a noise in the middle of the night and believing it to be an intruder and that Riva was still asleep in bed beside him, he claimed he grabbed his gun and then he heard a noise from behind the door within the bathroom, so like the ensuite bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
And in that bathroom, there was also like a separate little toilet room, which like classy.
A water closet.
I know, a poop door.
A poop
Sorry,
door.
yes, a water closet.
I fucking dream of having a poop door someday.
Mm-hmm.
And he claimed to believe that the intruder had taken refuge in there, which, like, yeah, that's totally what an intruder is going to do, is lock himself inside your toilet room with no chance of escape.
Right.
So then he fired 4 shots through the locked toilet room door, which, like, why was it locked?
Mm-hmm.
3 of which
was using the bathroom.
3 of which struck Riva, who was on the other side of the door. He claims that he then used the cricket bat to break down the door, and then he claims he did this in a panic after realizing that Riva was not in bed and putting it together that she was behind the toilet door, and she was who he had shot at.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So investigators don't fucking believe his story. He's arrested because, like, he shot and killed his girlfriend.
Mm-hmm.
And his trial for murder began in March of 2013. However, it was soon delayed for several months so that he could undergo psychiatric evaluation at the request of the prosecutor in the case, after the defense claimed that he had been diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder, which, like, fucking take a number, dude.
Yeah, hi.
Welcome to the club.
Yeah.
Right.
That's not an excuse for shooting
Absolutely not.
at any little noise in your home.
Mm-hmm.
So after the evaluation determined that he could, in fact, be held criminally responsible for his actions, the trial resumed. This is super high profile internationally. It was presided over by a judge named Thokozile Masipa and 2 other assessors who she appointed to help her decide on a verdict. And so in South Africa, there are no jury trials because it was too fraught post-apartheid. With race and everything and, like, jury determination. I mean, it's fucking fraught here in terms of race. So everything's done with a judge. So much of the testimony in the case hinged on whether or not Pistorius had put on his prosthetic legs that night before
I
he walked
remember this
across
now.
the bedroom into the bathroom and fired the shots through the door. Because the defense claimed that he had not put on his prosthetics, and then they used this as, like,
proof that his response was, like, in the moment, I
Right.
thought there was an intruder. I'm running. I'm getting to the bathroom as fast as I can to figure this out.
And they also tried to...
Wouldn't there have been evidence if he had not put on his legs?
Not necessarily if he took them off and staged it, that he quickly hopped out of bed and ran to the bathroom.
He could have staged it. It took a minute for the authorities to get there after she was shot.
Like, angle of the bullet holes would be at a different height.
Well, we will get to it.
Oh, okay.
So the defense is claiming that he didn't put on his prosthetics. It was like heat of the moment, whatever, panic. And then they also, like, really tried to emphasize his, like, quote unquote vulnerability by not having his prosthetics on and, like, I assume sort of using his arms to move and crawl across the room in case, believing that there was an intruder in the house, he would feel, like, vulnerable in that moment. The prosecution, largely based on testimony from the lead detective in the case, a man named Hilton Botha, and, like, we will get to him, argued that the angle of the shots indicated that he had, in fact, taken time to put on his prosthetics, which is, like, it takes a minute.
It can, yeah. I mean, it depends on, I don't know the style that he had bedside or, like, and he's also been using prosthetics his whole life.
Right.
So, like, that's obviously going to come more naturally to him than another person. But yeah, there's going to be an amount of time that will pass.
Right.
That's different than launching out of bed immediately and running to the scene.
Indicating a lack of panic and even premeditation. And also, presumably, he might have noticed during the process of attaching his prosthetic legs that Riva was not in bed beside him. If he was like, oh God, there's an intruder, I got to put on my legs, got to grab my gun. And throughout that, like, she's not in bed beside him, not saying anything.
Like, wouldn't you assume she's in the bathroom?
Right.
That is more compelling to me than the, like, lack of urgency tied to putting on the prosthetics. Because, like I said, he's been using them his whole life. It's almost like muscle memory to
But even
move
if
your
it
legs out of
takes
bed.
30 seconds. I mean, think
Totally,
about
totally.
how long 30 seconds is, really.
Right.
If
and
it
so,
takes 10 seconds.
yeah,
Right.
and I personally think that if he did put them on, then he would have time to logically establish that, yes, his fiance or girlfriend, whatever, is not in bed with him.
Right.
And put these pieces together. I am not defending him. I'm
Right.
just saying that portion of it is more
compelling,
compelling to me
yeah.
than just he put the legs on. There's no way that he was running to meet an intruder or investigate an intruder. It's like, that's your muscle memory. He's putting on his legs. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. No, I feel like if you think that there's an intruder and you also think that you have enough time to put
Right.
on your prosthetic legs,
You'd almost
then you're
wanna
going to
prepare-
put them on. Yeah.
Exactly. As much as you can to
Right.
be able to defend yourself against an intruder. So, like, I get that. But all that said, yeah, this guy's guilty. And I think this is
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
it's bullshit.
I mean,
but,
he
yeah.
fucking knew that she wasn't in bed beside him. So
Right.
one of the many dramatic twists in this hugely publicized trial came when it was revealed that Botha, the lead detective, himself was facing charges of attempted murder stemming from a 2011 incident in which he and two other officers allegedly fired their guns at a taxi with 7 passengers inside in a drunken incident, end quote. So the lead detective was not great, but that doesn't invalidate this case.
His guilt,
I
yeah.
feel like, especially because Oscar Pistorius is white. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
he shouldn't have been on duty at
Right.
all.
That detective
Who's
should have been
awaiting these
working.
fucking charges?
That's true.
It's all
Yes.
fishy.
Right. So Botha was replaced as lead detective and the trial was briefly paused. When it resumed, much of the defense centered around an affidavit that Pistorius presented to the court in which he laid out, again, his version of events. In this, he's emphasizing his fear, his vulnerability. He mentioned that he was too scared to switch a light on in the house.
Okay.
Which,
well, then.
okay, but, like, you have a gun. Like, I don't know. The affidavit reads in part, quote, I grabbed my 9mm pistol from underneath my bed. On my way to the bedroom, I screamed words to the effect for him or them to get out of my house, which, like, then why didn't you turn on a light if you're screaming at them? And for Riva to phone the police. It was pitch dark in the bedroom, and I thought Riva was in bed. I noticed that the bathroom window was open. I realized that the intruders were in the toilet because the toilet door was closed, and I did not see anyone in the bathroom. I heard movement inside the toilet. The toilet is inside the bathroom and has a separate door. It filled me with horror and fear of an intruder or intruders being inside the toilet. Come on. I thought here they must have entered through the unprotected window. As I did not have my prosthetic legs on and felt extremely vulnerable, I knew I had to protect Riva and myself. I believe that when the intruders came out of the toilet, we would be in grave danger. I felt trapped as my bedroom door was locked and I have limited mobility on my stumps, end quote.
Okay.
Again, his version of events. He goes on to describe the moment when he claims to have realized that Riva was, in fact, the person behind the toilet door. Quote, when I reached the bed, I realized that Riva was not in bed. That is when it dawned on me that it could have been Riva who was in the toilet. I returned to the bathroom calling her name. I tried to open the toilet door, but it was locked. I rushed back into the bedroom and opened the sliding door, exiting onto the balcony and screamed for help. Realized that he didn't mention anything about the cricket bat in that version.
Okay.
The prosecution cross-examined Pistorius about his version of events for 5 days. They also called a witness, the neighbor of Pistorius, who damningly claimed to have heard a man and a woman arguing.
Yeah.
And, quote, blood-curdling screams shortly before the gunshots were fired.
So there was an altercation.
Yeah. The defense cross-examined the neighbor, asking if the screams could have been Pistorius raising his voice in distress.
Like
and
confronting the burglar.
Right.
And then rolling his car 5 times.
And the neighbor insisted that she had heard 2 voices in the argument.
Mm-hmm.
The prosecution also introduced text messages between Riva and Pistorius, in which a few of them included accusations from Riva that he was jealous and possessive.
Ooh.
Yeah, all this tracks.
Yeah.
In one message, she wrote, quote, "I'm scared of you sometimes, of how you snap at me."
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's not good.
The defense countered this by pointing out that there had been 1,700 messages between them and only, quote, 4 conversations were argumentative, and that all of these resolved very quickly, end quote. But, like, the fact that she said, "I'm scared of you."
Mm-hmm.
Also, I don't do most of my arguing with my husband via text message.
Also,
I like that
I
face-to-face combat.
Also, they've only been together 3 months. And in abuse situations, usually the abuser can, like, keep up the facade for about 3 months. And then that is when that facade begins to crumble.
Slip, yeah.
Because they're playing a character and they can't keep it up for longer
Yeah, it's not
than that.
sustainable. Yeah.
Right. Also, there were signs of abuse in Pistorius's past relationships. So his ex-girlfriend, Samantha Taylor, had stated publicly that, quote, he used to lock her in his house with no food for hours at a time,
Oh my God.
call her parents many times a day to track her movements,
Ugh.
and physically abuse and threaten her to the extent that she feared for her life, end quote.
Nope. Nope.
And those two dated for about 18 months. And so she had like more time to experience
Yeah.
abuse from him.
Yeah.
And controlling behavior. So throughout the highly publicized trial, Pistorius had numerous dramatic outbursts in the courtroom, which included him sobbing, howling, and even vomiting.
Honey, something's not right.
No, that's not normal.
You're a mess.
So the Judge Masipa, ultimately ruled that Pistorius was not guilty of murder, but was guilty of culpable homicide, the equivalent of manslaughter, which I don't feel like was the right verdict. But also this judge is like weighing
What a jury, or not a jury, but like what will hold up.
what will hold up. A lot of race issues in this country. He's a very famous person. It was a huge deal.
Well, and also, again, I'm looking at this through an American lens. I do not understand the judicial system of other countries. I simply don't. But if this were happening in the U.S. and the state's prosecution could not prove premeditation,
Right.
then it would be a similar situation.
Right.
So, like, it tracks to me that would be a conscious choice in this case,
Right.
to make sure that this person goes away for
Right.
something that will stick,
Right.
rather than risk having
Them be
a
set
conviction
free.
completely overturned. Yeah,
Right.
because it's not going to hold up over time.
So the judge sentenced him to 5 years in prison, and he served only 1 year of this sentence before being released to serve the rest of it under house arrest.
Of course.
But don't worry, there's a lot more.
Yeah. Just the privilege of it all.
Oh, also, which I did not realize until researching this case, and I thought that I was pretty, up on this case. I didn't realize that he had other charges from other incidents before this.
Were they like dropped, or charges that he'd already paid fines and done time for?
We will get to it. So he was charged with reckless endangerment involving a firearm for a separate incident where he discharged a gun inside a restaurant
Jesus Christ.
Oh my God.
That's kind of a big one.
and managed to skirt 2 other firearm charges, including for an incident where he shot his gun from the sunroof of his car.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
Jesus.
Fucking rhinestone cowboy over here.
God, take this man's guns away.
Seriously. It's just like anywhere else in the fucking world. I mean, it's I don't know. It's just like the issues we deal with here exist in so many places.
South
and,
Africa and the U.S. are like very similar.
Right.
There
and
are a lot of parallels.
And there's just so much rooted in racism. Like if a person of color did fucking something like that, they probably wouldn't even survive seeing their day in court necessarily. It's just fucking tragic.
So the prosecution appealed and the case went back to court. This time the appeals court convicted him of murder. So the system is different in South Africa and the appeals can actually like ramp up the conviction.
The charges. Okay.
So it's like a retrial.
Yeah.
Wow.
And their reasoning was that even if he did not realize that Riva was the one behind the locked door, he fired with the
At
intention
someone.
of killing whoever was
Yeah,
inside.
a person. Yep.
And so that in and of itself is premeditated murder. Yeah. So then the case was sent back to Judge Masipa for sentencing. During the sentencing hearing, his defense lawyer requested that he remove his prosthetic legs in the courtroom as a fucking show pony to demonstrate his vulnerability.
You know what? Okay, there's obviously a lot to be said about disabled folks with disabilities and amputees and vulnerability.
Yeah.
But this guy is milking that.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
It's really gross how
He is absolutely,
manipulating.
yes. Absolutely, yes.
That's gross.
Right. And it really does like fucking laugh in the face and spit in the face of very real ableism that fucks with
Yes.
people's day-to-day life and especially in like application of judicial process.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
it's just all around fucking gross.
Right. Exactly. There are a lot of folks with disabilities who face very real challenges when it comes to like being vulnerable, not receiving the level of care that they need, or, you know, not being able to like advocate for themselves to receive the care, the quality care that they require. And like, this is not that. This is him using this as an excuse.
Yeah, and he's exploiting that very real existence of ableist oppression
Yep.
It's really
to,
gross.
to fix his shit that he made.
Yep. So they, you know, this was seen as a blatant attempt to make the judge, quote, pity his client and hand down a lighter sentence. It was like very much in the news and like at least people called him out for doing this, but whatever. It is possible, though, that it was an effective strategy because Judge Masipa sentenced Pistorius to only 6 years in prison rather than 15, which is actually the minimum sentence for murder. And somehow he basically got the sentence of manslaughter, even though
but the
he had been
charge or whatever.
convicted of murder.
Yeah.
What the fuck is the point of that?
Yeah. So he's currently still serving his sentence. He had been out for a while under house arrest. And I think I was there when he was under house arrest for a while. And then
Were you nervous?
No. Although I do know somebody who
She
knows.
kept a golf club next to the bed
You know someone
to
who
defend
what?
against
You got to.
Pistorius.
I know somebody who's friends with his sister. But anyway,
Oh my god.
I never met her, so that's all I know. But anyway, he's serving his sentence. He will be eligible for parole next year in 2023.
Dang.
In a piece for The Guardian during his trial, South African novelist Margie Orford described how, in addition to the all too common problem of domestic violence, which is very real in South Africa and everywhere around the world, the case also encapsulated the specific cultural baggage of post-apartheid South Africa. She wrote, quote, "The figure of the threatening black stranger has driven many South Africans into fortress-like housing estates, surrounded by electric fences, armed guards, and the relentless surveillance of security cameras. 1,000%. I fucking...
You
We
lived in one.
we had no choice. I mean, it was required. The school could not get insurance if all of their staff didn't live in
A gated
communities.
So it's an institutional segregation situation.
1,000%.
Yeah,
this
I
day.
mean, our community was obviously like non-segregated mixed race. It was a mix of white and black and
Right, but
and
it's just
everything
like
in
Well, it doesn't
between.
need to be
segregation by
that
default.
blatant. It's like classist segregation.
Classist, yes.
Right, exactly.
Finishing the quote, the claim that Pistorius believed to be defending his home from an intruder inserts a third body into an all too familiar narrative of domestic violence. This imaginary body of the paranoid imaginings of suburban South Africa has lurked like a boogeyman at the periphery of this story. It is the threatening body, nameless and faceless, of an armed and dangerous black intruder. Perhaps this is the real fascination of the story for us. These three bodies, one dead, one imagined, and one on trial, will play different roles. So many men in South Africa exist in this state of macho, hair-triggered tension in which action comes all too often before thought.
Not just in South Africa.
Yeah, in the U.S. too. So many parallels. This trial will have to weigh one version of macho against another. Either Steenkamp died because of Pistorius's drive for the ultimate control over a woman that comes if you kill her, or she died an innocent bystander of that other macho, which has not faded in the 20 years since apartheid, where a notion of total onslaught comes from a deeply entrenched fear of the Swart Gevaar, the black peril. Swart is black and Gevaar means danger, end quote. So, I mean, that's very much true. It's like there was this like excuse, this mentality among a lot of white South Africans of like, well, there are lots of intruders. And like, there are, but at the same time, if you have enough of these like systems in place, like that's still fucking paranoia. It's still bullshit.
Ugh. Yeah, it's such like a layered and intersectional issue.
And nuanced, really.
And nuanced and systemic on 1,000 fucking levels.
And the domestic...
And is like, it's not written in stone that it's like segregation but it is targeted to the black community. Like that's how it plays out here, and that's how it plays out there.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. And it's a little bit different there because the demographics are so different, and like 93% of the country is black. And so, whatever. In the US, that's like not the case, but we still have those same prejudices.
Yep.
Yeah. It's a very interesting case, but he fucking did it. And every time people learn that I lived in South Africa, they like ask me about him, and I'm like, oh, he fucking did it.
Yeah.
It was domestic violence. He was an abuser. This poor woman, she was starting to pick up on the fact that he was controlling and violent, but it was also so new and so fresh.
Right.
That, what there's nothing more she could have done to protect herself. It was just, he's just a horrible, paranoid, violent man.
Controlling
and
man.
then he tapped into like manipulation and ableism and racism to defend himself. And frankly, it fucking worked.
It fucking worked. Fame, white privilege, and manipulating ableism to his benefit.
I knew he was a piece of shit, but I really hadn't spent time analyzing this case. And it is like so much more layered in how shitty he is than I even knew.
I'm glad that our fan picker requested this case because
that's
and
nuts.
like
it's
the
deep.
fact that he's like has athletic accomplishments as a disabled person, like, okay, great, fine. That doesn't outweigh everything else he's done. And it certainly doesn't outweigh the value of this poor woman's life.
No, you can lose your legs and still be a piece of shit.
Yeah.
I like Margie's paragraph at the end, though. That
Very
kind of ties it all
interesting.
together in a really concise, interesting way.
All right, let's dive into this update on Oscar Pistorius. He was released on parole 11 years after killing Reva Steenkamp. Officials confirmed Pistorius was, quote, at home on Friday morning, having served half of his more than 13-year sentence. Ms. Steenkamp's mother said that she accepted the decision to release the former athlete, but added her family was the one serving a life sentence. His parole conditions are as follows. Under South African law, all offenders are entitled to be considered for parole, meaning early release under certain conditions once they have served half of their total sentence, for which Pistorius was finally set at 13 years and 5 months. Until his sentence expires in 2029, he will live under strict rules, confining him to the home for certain hours of the day, as well as banning him from drinking any alcohol. He is also not permitted to speak to the media. In addition, Pistorius will be required to have therapy to help deal with issues around gender-based violence and anger. The Steenkamp family has submitted a reaction to his release, and they say, quote, Miss Steenkamp's mother, June, asked, has there been justice for Riva? Has Oscar served enough time? There can never be justice if your loved one is never coming back, and no amount of time served will bring Riva back. We who remain behind are the ones serving a life sentence. She added, my only desire is that I will be allowed to live my last years in peace with my focus remaining on the Riva Rebecca Steenkamp Foundation to continue Riva's legacy. With that update, let's hear a word from our sponsors.
Ever considered your clothes as like the storybook of your life's chapters? I mean, I just posted yesterday a picture of me 15 years ago. I was wearing a lace cami and like
obsessed
pinstripe
with a polo,
flared dress pants.
That was so iconic.
That was a chapter.
Yeah.
So picture having the ideal wardrobe to match your 2024 era, which is not the same as your 2009 era.
We're not bringing back layering popped collars this year.
Not yet, anyway.
Not yet.
So whether you're picking up a new activity this year, if you're looking for maternity wear, or if you're simply bored of your old choices, your popped collars, the stylists at Stitch Fix can curate the perfect look for your unique journey.
I love Stitch Fix, and I wasn't even like looking for new wardrobe, new styles. I just wanted to make my shopping experience easier within the style parameters that I already like. And honestly, Stitch Fix is the best way to shop styles, whether new or consistent with how you already like to dress, and different brands. Like, you think of them as your style partner, so your stylist is a person, not just like an algorithm, and they learn about your tastes and collaborate with you on looks that you'll love without breaking the bank. You simply share your preferences, your sizes, and your budget, and Stitch Fix sends you 5 items in a fix right to your door, so you don't have to like be in a claustrophobic changing room with always fluorescent lighting and like a
weird
funhouse mirror.
Yeah.
Why do they do this to us? I don't understand. With your choices in mind and sizes from extra small to 3XL, they find your perfect fit, and you can try everything on at home. You keep what you like and send back the rest. They have shipping and returns already taken care of for you. They're always free. They just include a bag that already is labeled that you put the stuff you don't want in, and you give it to your mail person, and you don't even have to think about it. They have over 1,000 brands and styles, so no matter what season of life you're in, Stitch Fix has you covered. You simply order a refresh as needed, or you can set it and forget it with regular fixes. You are totally in control. Over time, Stitch Fix and their season style experts will match you with greater precision to perfect pieces for you based on your likes and dislikes. It is so easy.
It is so easy. So thanks, Stitch Fix. They just get us, and they will get you too. Try today at stitchfix.com/gals. and you'll get 25% off when you keep everything in your fix. That's stitchfix.com/gals, stitchfix.com/GALS, and treat your wardrobe.
Trade it. Y'all, if you've been listening to the show for a minute, you know that I love a gallery wall. I love maximalism. I love printing and framing all of the most fun memories and moments of my life.
You got a lot of pictures.
I have so many pictures, and FrameBridge makes it easy and affordable to custom frame just about anything. And let me tell you, they have, for me, my entire house is like a living FrameBridge museum of my life.
It's also not even just like 2-dimensional pieces.
No.
You could FrameBridge like a shirt.
A concert ticket.
So much.
So much cool stuff.
And let me tell you, I have so much FrameBridge in my house because I take so many pictures.
You do.
I've also like recently indulged in a newborn photo shoot, and
yes.
I'm not picking a favorite.
No.
Are you
You're printing
kidding
all
me?
of them and covering your entire house like wallpaper in FrameBridge photos of your baby.
Absolutely. In
Joy.
really cute frames, by the way. So FrameBridge is super fast. They ship your finished frame directly to your house in days. Their pricing is also very, very fair and transparent. So if you've ever brought something to a frame shop, you might have had like some sticker shock because it can get quite pricey.
Hundreds of dollars.
Yeah, FrameBridge starts at extremely reasonable prices that are based simply upon the size of your piece, and you'll know exactly what you're paying up front. And they don't just do one-off frames. They have a popular line of, like, Amanda's favorite, curated gallery walls. So each wall comes with a life-size hanging guide. So you too can have the confidence to put up a gallery wall.
To install it and have it look amazing.
Yourself. In just a few minutes. And they also have a happiness guarantee. So if you're not 100% happy with your piece for any reason, they will make it right. And if you're nervous about shipping in, like, you know, your grandpa's lapel or like whatever you're having
beloved
framed,
heirloom that you want framed,
or like a one of a kind, like a photograph.
Right.
You don't have to worry because they send you the most like sturdy, secure, reliable. This like the Tom Hanks of packaging.
Correct.
To send your piece in, they frame it, they send it back. It's very secure. It's very well packaged. You don't have to worry about anything breaking. It's so fast, and you know what? Your walls deserve it. Your walls deserve to be adorned in your favorite memories, so you got to give FrameBridge a try.
So now that Lucy has totally sold you on FrameBridge, I'm going to tell you quickly how it works. You order online at framebridge.com, and you can either upload a digital photo for them to print, which I love because it's like I have so many fun pictures on my phone that I don't look at all the time. And then they'll frame that. Or, like Lucy mentioned, you can mail in your art or a photograph or a piece you want framed. They will send you free, secure, prepaid packaging to mail back your art. And FrameBridge custom frames your piece in their studio using the highest quality materials and ships it to your door for free, ready to hang, baby. So join us by visiting framebridge.com or head to one of their retail stores to custom frame just about anything and treat your walls. Today, I will be revisiting the case of Brittany Drexel from episode 201, Twisted Timelines. This case update has probably been sent to us more than any other case update we've ever received, so I'm super pumped about this. And, you know, just to refresh your memory a little bit on this case, Brittany's parents were getting divorced in 2008. She's super upset about it. Kind of one of her ways to cope is like she wants to go on a trip. She packs her bags. She's heading to Myrtle Beach. She's doing some spring breaking. Her mom had said no to going on that trip, but she did it anyway. And she checked in with her mother on April 25th, 2009, just saying she was at the beach, didn't say where. So her mom assumed that she was like at one of the Lake Ontario beaches near Rochester, but it turns out she was not there. There's a lot in this case. There are podcasts and online forums completely dedicated to this case. I'm not going to be able to cover it all, so don't at me. So we are discussing the disappearance of 17-year-old, at least at the time of her disappearance, Brittany Drexel. So she was born in 1991 in Rochester, New York. Rochester, the city that always sleeps. And shortly after she was born, her mother, Dawn, married a man who was not her biological father. Her biological father, some reports said he was Turkish and they were like estranged. It could have been just a fling situation. Dawn became pregnant. Shortly after Brittany was born, she married a man named Chad Drexel, hence Brittany Drexel, because he adopted her.
Okay.
So Brittany was a pretty typical teen of the early aughts. Like, looking at photos of her is basically like looking through our high school yearbook. A lot of distinctive eyeliner, hair straightening, like
frosty
really crushing
eyeshadow.
it. Yeah, a little frosted, God bless her.
Lip venom.
The lip
She
balm.
also wore distinctive contact lenses because she was born with persistent hyperplastic primary vitreous in the right eye, which you could look up what that means, but essentially after multiple corrective surgeries, she ended up blind in her right eye.
Oh my
Which I know Canyon can relate to.
Mine's my left.
Well, there you go.
Right.
I'm
But
Googling
yeah.
this Hyper.
So her parents split up, Chad and Dawn split up in 2008, which was really hard for Brittany. It had an impact on her performance in school, left her with feelings of depression. I mean, she was like 16 when her parents were getting divorced. It's a hard time anytime to go through that. Mm-hmm. But like any teen in general, but also any teen going through tough times, the opportunity to kind of escape and go have fun with friends was extremely alluring. So in 2009, the year after her parents split up, when she was invited on a spring break trip to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina.
Oh my God.
A high traffic spring break destination. Mm-hmm. She was like super fixated on going. She really wanted to go. And her mother, Dawn, was open to it, but after like looking into the details of this trip was not on board.
My mom would have laughed in my face.
I mean,
no, I couldn't even go to Warped Tour. You guys both got to go to Warped Tour. I never got to go.
That was daytime. Yeah, that's funny that you weren't allowed to go.
Even if this had been like, maybe your mom would have laughed in your face if this was like a fully legitimate, planned out trip, but this was not. This was a trip with friends that Dawn, the mother, like really didn't know. There wouldn't be any adult supervision, no chaperone. They're 17, 18 years old.
My mom would have just been like, that's so cute.
Yeah, exactly.
Everyone knows you're going to be drinking and fucking your way through this entire vacation. It's not
100%.
happening.
Yeah. So Dawn shut it down immediately, just
she
like
should
any of our
have.
moms would.
I would have.
Yeah. But Brittany had it set in her mind to go. And after several days of sparring with her mother, like they were fighting a lot. And Brittany tells her mother, like, I need to just go stay at a friend's house for a day or two. I need to cool off. Like, I can't be around you anymore. And Dawn is like, fine, get out of here. I don't want you around right now.
Going to Myrtle Beach.
Yeah. Well, funny that you should say that, Kenyon, because Dawn did agree to this and Brittany packed a little bag and left. But what Dawn didn't know is that her daughter was not going to a friend's house, but rather heading south to join in the fun at Myrtle Beach. Mm-hmm. So
Where'd she start out?
Rochester, New York. So that's a drive.
That's a haul.
It's a haul. Brittany did check in with her mother by phone on April 25th, 2009, and mentioned she was, quote, at the beach. So she's like, not lying, but failed to mention where.
Which
beach? So Dawn assumed that she was...
April in upstate New York.
Well, it's funny that you should say that. Dawn assumed she was at a nearby popular Lake Ontario spot because it was unseasonably warm in Rochester at that time, and it was spring break. It was in the 80s, so a bunch of the teens were like hanging out at that beach.
A local beach.
Correct.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, which normally wouldn't be the case, but because it was so warm that week.
Unseasonably warm.
Yep. So she didn't even think about it. She's like, all right, she's at the lake beach, whatever, it's fine. Had no clue.
She got lucky.
And Brittany didn't mention that she had left town at all. I think Brittany knew exactly what she was saying on the phone to her mother. Yeah. I don't think it was Brittany getting lucky. I think it was a teenager knowing what to say without saying everything.
Well, it's not that it's not what she said. It's about the timing of the circumstances,
right, and the temperature
that she got lucky.
Totally, that's fair.
Wow.
So Brittany had made it safely to Myrtle Beach and met up with her friends at the Bar Harbor Hotel. Around 8 p.m., she was seen on security cameras leaving the hotel and heading toward a different hotel called the Blue Water Resort, where she told her tripmates that she was meeting another friend who was down there for spring break. So security footage captured her arriving at the Blue Water Resort and then leaving again around 8:45 p.m. Mm-hmm. So there's like nothing suspicious in the footage at this point. She's fully dressed. She has her purse. She's coming and going of her own accord.
Yeah, she's walking. Yeah.
Yep. Her boyfriend, John Greco, was supposed to be on the trip as well, which is another reason why Dawn was like, meow. Meow.
Yeah, I probably would have done the same thing.
Oh, for sure.
Now that you mentioned her boyfriend's on the trip.
I'm lying and driving to Myrtle Beach. Like, I would have done this. I'm going to Sam Blur's house, and I'm just kidding, Mom.
Your high school boyfriend is a fucking irresistible magnet. I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. It just is.
Myrtle Beach
I would have been way too scared.
Her church parking lot.
Your
mom's
scary.
Yeah, my mom would have driven to Myrtle Beach
My baby's in that
and
beach.
found me on a beach.
My child.
My baby's in there.
Yeah.
So the boyfriend, John, was supposed to be on this trip, but ended up having to work over spring break. So he stayed in Rochester, New York. So Brittany was in touch with John, and he knew that she was down there. And on the night of the 25th, they had been consistently texting back and forth. But the text messages from Brittany abruptly stopped around 9:15 p.m. So she's left the friend's hotel room at 8:45. She's wandering, texting with her boyfriend.
Later.
Yep. And then all of a sudden, 9:15, John is like, why aren't you texting me back? What's going on?
So she's alone at this point.
Yes.
Okay.
So John was concerned that she wasn't responding, so he called like the girlfriends that she was down there with. They couldn't confirm where she was because she had left to go meet this other friend. and they
Everybody's
couldn't-
wasted.
Yeah, probably. I mean, it's 9:15. I don't think Brittany necessarily was because she had just gotten there. She basically got there, put down her stuff, got changed. She'd been driving all day, and then she's going to meet a friend. But I think that as the night progressed, that was the plan. But we can't confirm.
Right. I'm just
I'm sure the friends were
Speculating.
Her friends
hammered.
probably were,
That's got to be spot on.
but who knows?
So these girls can't get a hold of her. John can't get a hold of her. So John is like, this is scary. I don't like this. So he calls Brittany's mother, Dawn.
good for him. I
I
feel
know.
like that would be a
That's the
gutsy
right
move.
move.
And also
As a teenager.
trust your gut kind of move.
Yep.
Where you're like, I really think that something is wrong, and I know,
And I know
that
I'm gonna get in
her
trouble.
in super big trouble.
but he
like,
cares about her, so he did it.
Yeah,
for
I was
him.
also very impressed with that, where it's like teenage boy using their brain.
I can't
Yeah.
fathom what it would have taken for any of my teenage boyfriends to speak to my mother.
Seeing me dead might get a call.
Well, also like the fact that her girlfriends who were down there didn't call, or
Right.
you know, like send some
Well,
sort
at
of
this
alarm.
point, she said she was going to find somebody else.
Exactly. They're not with her, and she's only been in town for a couple hours. I can,
Yeah.
and they're off doing their own thing. I get that,
Yeah.
but
So
I mean,
yes, and for the boyfriend from a long distance away, he's
Yep.
not really involved in the situation at all.
right, to
She's
have
out
that
of touch
instinct.
for like what, a half hour, 45 minutes to be like, no, this is not
Granted,
right.
if you leave me on red for half an hour, I am calling the police. I
terrible.
don't.
If you have
I
your
can't.
red receipts on,
I hate
I'm
that.
calling the police.
I hate it. Bill always has his on, and it is infuriating. So on the night of the 25th, like I said, they'd been consistently texting. 9:15, he calls them up. So this is Dawn's first time hearing that Brittany is in fucking Myrtle Beach. She immediately calls her ex-husband Chad, Brittany's adoptive father, as well as the Rochester PD in the hopes that they could connect her or connect themselves with authorities in South Carolina. And by the morning of April 26th, the search is in full swing because we've got a minor.
Spring break in a spring break hotspot. Oh
Yep.
my God.
Yep,
Oh
we've
my
got a
God.
minor female missing exactly in a spring break, like top 10 beach town.
Oh God.
So, through security camera footage and interviews with the friends that she was traveling with, investigators were able to determine that the last person she was seen with was a 20-year-old guy named Peter Brozowitz. And I literally wrote with the last name that begins with bro, he could only be a nightclub promoter. And he was a nightclub promoter.
Of course.
Yeah.
I'm sure everybody called him
Brittany,
bro.
no.
And they were like, oh, but what's your real name? It's bro.
It's Brozowitz.
Brozowitz.
I mean, talk about the party was born to play, baby. It's bonks. So
And he looks like James Franco in Spring Breakers
Probably.
with the grill. Spring Break.
Spring
Right.
He was also from Rochester, and this is how Brittany knew him. He was spring breaking in Myrtle Beach as well, but he didn't live down there full time. So the two had gone to a nightclub together on the evening of the 25th, apparently, or like made a plan to do this. This is kind of unclear. Investigators questioned Peter and his bros, who were all sharing a hotel room for the trip. But these interviews did not yield significant leads.
Because they were fucked.
Probably
up
hammered.
the whole time.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Which brings the investigation to tracking Brittany's cell phone.
Oh.
So she had her purse and her cell phone on her the night that she disappeared, and cell tower pings were able to track the phone south along Route 17, traveling nearly 60 miles away from Myrtle Beach before all pings abruptly ended the morning of the 26th. So the phone either died or was destroyed at that time. That's the theory.
But it still traveled 60 miles from
Yep.
where she was.
Yep.
Oh.
60 miles. So a search team headed to the area where the last ping was recorded, and an exhaustive 11-day search for any shred of evidence came up pretty much empty. Like, they couldn't find the phone, they couldn't find clothing, they can't find her purse, they can't find her body. Like, there's nothing tangible that they can enter into evidence. So at this point, here's what we know, and shout out to the online forum websleuths.com for compiling this timeline. The 25th of April, 7:55-ish p.m., Brittany enters the Blue Water Resort. 8 p.m., her boyfriend John is like in consistent phone contact with Brittany. Still around 8 p.m., Brittany is basically in Peterborough's room at the Blue Water Resort. Between 8 o'clock and 8:10, it's kind of murky.
Wait, do they know that because of the pings?
Not because of the pings.
Because of
This is
what
because
Peter
of the
Bro
security
said.
footage at this point.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
And Peter's like eyewitness. Yes, I was with her at this time. So between 8 o'clock and 8:10, there's a call that comes in to Peter's room, I guess, like to contact Brittany from one of her female travel mates about like a pair of shorts that her friend was looking for. And it's
Classic.
like, I want to wear these shorts. Where are my fucking shorts? I think some reports say that like Brittany was wearing the shorts in
Yeah,
question.
of course.
Probably.
Yeah.
Bitch, give me those shorts.
Bitch, give me my shorts. So 8:13 p.m., Brittany's leaving the Blue Water Resort, and maybe because she's wearing the shorts, that's why she's like heading back toward her actual
Her
hotel
friends.
so she can give
Yeah.
the shorts back to her friend. So between 8:13 and 8:20, this is a 7-minute block that we can't track her. Like, we don't know where she is. She's not picked up. If she was like telling her friend that she was heading back to the hotel, there's a certain camera that she should have been picked up on, and she's not. But around 8:45 p.m., the friend who had called about the shorts does receive a text message from Brittany saying, "I'm on my way back to the hotel." So that could have been Brittany who wrote that. She could have also been abducted already at that point, and somebody used her phone to lay a trap or like
gain a
you
little
know,
time.
right, cover a trail. 9:15
Or she
p.m.
could have just taken a different route to the hotel.
She could have. Yeah. Again, we don't know because the footage that would have shown her, or that they think the most likely camera that she should have crossed, she didn't cross. So we don't know her location at this point. But then at 9:15, Brittany sends that last text to her boyfriend. John texts back like a minute later. He doesn't get a response. And he's texting her and texting her and texting her. Can't get in touch with her. At this point, in this like 15-minute slot, he's calling the friends. They don't know where she is. They're not answering.
That's so quick.
I know.
It's
But
really quick.
People would wait days of me not responding.
I could see
before
teenagers, though, in an
If I-
active conversation with somebody who then all of a
Yeah.
sudden was not answering. I'd probably be like, their phone died.
Yeah.
But this was also 2008, 2009.
So phones like didn't die. They just
I
lasted
mean-
forever.
Yeah, Nokia.
Earlier today, I should have called the police because I didn't hear back from Kenyon.
I was depression napping.
'Cause she was snapping.
We just call your husband.
Yeah.
That's the way we do it. But he's at work today. But either way, John bursts into action a lot faster. So around 9:30, John calls Dawn and is like, I was just talking to Brittany. Now she's not answering the phone. What's going on? Then we get into the cell tower pings. So the first like significant ping is at between like 11 p.m. and midnight on the 25th. That is showing that the cell phone at least is moving out of Myrtle Beach and heading south.
That's so scary. Oh,
I know. And then we've got 1 to 2 a.m. Peter and the bro crew actually leave Myrtle Beach to head back home to Rochester. So
Between 1 and 2 a.m.?
I guess that's what this says on the 26th.
Oh, I don't
weird.
like that.
I know,
That's
I don't like it
weird.
either. But these guys do get interviewed multiple times, and it just doesn't circle back to them. But I could see them being.
I did leave a place at 1 or 2 a.m. with a bunch of girlfriends on a spring break trip, driving from D.C. back up to upstate New York.
Yeah.
So you basically did exactly this.
So I basically did exactly this.
Corey did the same thing, trying to leave for some sort of West Coast road trip, but he was bartending at the time. So they left right when he got off work at 3 a.m. to make it to whatever destination city by
right.
8.
They're fucking 20, and they probably had to be at work the next day or something stupid.
Something
I
dumb.
got this on paper sounds really suspect, but
Bonkers.
we've all done it. So
1,000%.
We did it because we were staying at a friend's college apartment, and he had a bajillion roommates, and I was like, my friends and I are on spring break. We're driving back. Can we crash at yours? And he was like, yeah, of course. And then the 5 of us got there, and there was nowhere for us to sleep.
And college, high school, spring break, what is time?
Right.
Everything
You're up
revolves
anyway.
around your budget and your sobriety.
Yeah,
so
it's 2 a.m.
there are no rules.
We're out of money, and one of us is sober. Let's just fucking go.
Let's
Just
go.
Go. Yeah.
Literally been
This
there.
is what we did.
So between 1 a.m. and about 5 a.m., the cell phone is continuing to ping towers until it dies or is broken. So the last ping apparently happens about 60 miles away at about 5 a.m.
But south.
Yes.
Not like she was this is weird, I'm going home.
No, she's not heading to Rochester. She's going further south.
And she's not with any of her friends.
Right. Around the same time, so between 4:50 and 5 a.m. is when Brittany is officially reported missing to the Myrtle Beach Police Department. Because as we know, Dawn was informed the night before, and now Dawn is no one can get in touch with her. Fucking she's missing. What's going
so
on?
Rochester PD contacts Myrtle Beach, yeah.
So around 5:45 a.m., the Myrtle Beach Police Department get into the room at the bar hotel. No one's home in the room, but stuff is there. So the girls probably are either still out or partying somewhere else, whatever. Around
So
11
all of her shit is there.
yes, her stuff is dropped off,
for
but
her phone.
purse.
Except for her
her purse, her phone, and the articles of clothing that were on her person
The shorts.
are the shorts.
the shorts.
Are missing. And
The
I
shorts in
actually am
question.
not 100% sure if she had her own room or if she was sharing a room with somebody else. I didn't even think about this because myself at 33 is well, she had her own room. Of course, nobody was present. But I also didn't see anything else significant in my research that was there should have been other people in this room and they weren't there. So it's possible she just had a cheap, shitty room that she got
she's
last
how old?
minute.
She's what,
She's 17, so
17?
I don't know if you can
She
even
didn't
get a
have her
hotel
own
room on
room.
your own.
she didn't.
So she was staying somewhere, but that room was empty. But the girls could have passed out in the adjacent room. Who fucking knows?
Gotcha.
But it wasn't that isn't a significant part of the timeline. And the last thing on here is at about 11 a.m. on the 26th, Brittany's travel friends completely check out of the bar hotel and they move to a different hotel because now I guess that area is basically a crime scene. Not a crime scene, but under investigation. So they leave and go to a different hotel, but they're not leaving town. They're still being interviewed by police.
Okay.
So searches continued for 2 weeks before being called off by the Myrtle Beach Police Department on May 10th of 2009 after their efforts had not uncovered conclusive evidence as to Brittany's whereabouts. Her family and friends continued to search over the next year, with her mother, Dawn, even permanently moving from Rochester to Myrtle Beach to devote herself to finding her daughter. Around the time of that 2 week, well, we didn't find anything, so we're calling this search off, but we're keeping the case open, Dawn hired a private investigator.
Good. Dawn's doing everything she possibly can.
1,000%.
Oh.
So this investigator also brought in cadaver dogs to assist in the search, and they did pick up a scent near a, quote, alligator pit.
Don't like that.
Do not like that.
Oh.
Which former investigator turned PI Steve Pickering, this is the guy that she'd hired, said in an interview, quote, "It helps piece it together. It helps corroborate what other people said," which we'll get to. "It's not conclusive, but it certainly adds to the totality of the evidence that's been gathered so far. So he and his team were able to recover...
Alligator pit?
Yes, and we'll get to it. He and his team were able to recover some evidence at the site, which they presented to the FBI. And I think the evidence they uncovered was like, these cadaver dogs had her scent. That led us here. This fits into the puzzle this way. It wasn't
So they're
like,
tracking her specific scent.
Correct.
Yeah.
But what they couldn't get, where it says like it's not conclusive, is it's not like, oh, here's her shoe.
Right.
Or, they don't have anything physical they
dog's
can hand
alert.
over. Right.
But that's all they got.
So he continues to say, quote, the only problem I see is law enforcement didn't gather this cadaver dog evidence. So they might have a question of continuity, but I'm a retired
legitimacy.
law enforcement official who gathered it. So like as a respected forensic analyst and a respected forensic analyst processed it and testified in court before. So that whole breakdown of like, well, the cops weren't the ones to gather it. Pickering says that's a hurdle that a prosecutor in court could easily overcome by being like, correct, but it was gathered by a former officer and this active and respected analyst processed this evidence.
Yeah.
The FBI should have accepted it. But the FBI didn't.
Either way.
They didn't take the evidence.
I mean, I can see that because like the credentials of a person experienced in collecting evidence from cadaver dogs, or even like the licensure of cadaver dogs themselves, like that expires. There's like training and blah, blah, blah.
For sure.
Not to say that this was incorrect evidence, but like in terms of like judicial submission
that's
for
the
evidence.
trick of like having any kind of private benefactors
Yeah.
in a
does,
case.
and it does suck. I personally think that it should have been accepted, even if it ends up not being admissible in court. At least it could flesh out some of this picture, because there's so little to go on in this situation that it's like,
Yeah.
if you can accept an anonymous tip, and we'll kind of get to that, like you should also accept this kind of evidence. But
I feel like it should be accepted in the fact that like, oh, this is like somewhat credible.
It's a potential lead.
Evidence. So let's use our currently accredited cadaver dogs and researchers
to corroborate
and like
it.
corroborate that way.
Exactly, through the channels that we know will hold up in a court of law. I completely agree. So
Exactly.
obviously that's not what fucking happened, because nothing would turn up in this case for years, okay? And then suddenly in 2016, a jailhouse informant...
When did she first disappear?
2009. So this is now 7 years later. And a jailhouse informant points the finger at a suspect. So a man named Timothy Deshaun Taylor was accused, alongside his own father, of kidnapping Brittany and holding her, quote, at a trap house, which is like a stash house, where she was gang raped and shot before her body was dumped in an alligator swamp.
Oh, Jesus fucking Christ.
Worst case scenario.
Correct. But also, this is coming from a jailhouse informant, which is not the most solid or reliable source.
How did Timothy Deshaun Taylor, did he know her at all? Like, did he pluck her off the street?
sure
What's
she'll
the
get to
theory?
it.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, we'll kind of get to it. So the informant, who is a man named Taquan Brown, went to this alleged trap house to make a drug transaction and claims that he saw Timothy at this house with Brittany, that he saw him engaged in like an act of sexual assault with her. He further claimed that, or of her, not with her, sorry. He further claimed that Brittany tried to escape but was captured again in the front yard by Timothy. And afterward, Taquan claims to have heard gunshots from inside the house and to have seen a wrapped body being taken out of the house. So these statements could only be corroborated by, you guessed it, another jailhouse informant.
Oof.
When these allegations were brought to the FBI, Timothy was already being held on charges related to armed robbery of a McDonald's where he had acted as a getaway driver. So no charges were officially brought against him in Brittany's case because there wasn't enough evidence to link him to it. But it's certainly suspicious how federal charges were all of a sudden brought down for his role in the robbery and pushed for much stricter sentencing once these allegations came to light, even though he had already been charged by the state. So it's definitely like they had no real evidence.
The feds were like, we're
putting you away for
really
something.
bad guy. Yeah, exactly.
Correct. So we don't really have the hard evidence, but we want to punish you for something anyway. Authorities subjected him to a polygraph with questions about Brittany, which they were quick to note he failed, but he also failed at the question of what is your name?
So then how can that be a fail if you fail at the control question?
Exactly. That indicates I feel like we often have this conversation about polygraph that like this testing is inaccurate at best. It's often not admissible in court for that very reason. Like, why do we still fucking do this?
Yeah.
Also, like, I mean, this is horrible to say, but like maybe Taquan Brown did see
Totally.
Timothy assaulting someone and you know, hurting someone. That's possible. I don't know, but how conclusive is it to know that it was Brittany and not some other missing person?
Right. And we don't have additional corroborating evidence
if there's
or
nothing
witnesses
to connect her to him.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. This is getting
There's
messy
so many
real
holes.
quick.
It's very messy. So Timothy was able to provide like vague information about an argument that he overheard between two individuals who may have been fighting over the location of Brittany's phone, but he couldn't confirm that this argument was even about Brittany and only that it was like notably suspicious.
Was this quote unquote trap house 60 miles south of Myrtle Beach?
It was in a reasonably close proximity to the last cell phone ping. So there is reason to follow this lead if this is like this is a lead to explore for sure. If this person is coming forward and saying, "Hey, I saw this, look into this." But once again, they are looking into it, and it's just this isn't sticking. And then in 2019, Taquan Brown again brings forward more information. So he claims that he had actually seen Brittany several times in the month after her disappearance. And it was his understanding that she had been killed about a month after she'd gone missing, which is kind of a different development from his original story, which didn't have quite as wide of a timeline. So now he's saying in 2019, so like just a little over a year ago, he'd seen her in the house on April 27th, which is 2 days after she was abducted. Then he claims that he saw her again at the house a month later, and that's when the alleged escape attempt and shooting occurred. But once again, when corroboration of these claims is needed, it can't be found. So witnesses could confirm the existence and description of this like stash house in question, but nobody else can place Brittany there. The owner of the house, who happens to be Taquan's cousin, was dead before he could be questioned. I don't know how he died. And another corroborating witness that was named by Taquan just couldn't be located. Like, we don't know if this is even a real person. Or Taquan is like, also go check in with this person.
Is the theory that they like abducted her off the street and then held her at this home for a month?
Correct. Which,
I mean, it's possible.
Why? It is possible.
But it could also have been any other victim from...
I think it's likely that she was abducted for nefarious reasons, that something transpired. I don't know who abducted her. I have no clue. Something transpired. She died, whether that it was accidental in, like a robbery or an assault gone horribly wrong, even more wrong than the initial assault. And then she was taken out of town and her body was put in a literal alligator pit. I think that happened. I don't know if these people were involved in what happened, but I do think that theory holds up.
I mean, it's definitely possible. It's just there's just such a lack of specific evidence.
Exactly. Like, the twisted timeline is really just a massive hole, and then this like weird fill in the blank, maybe this happened from someone years later that we can't 100% confirm.
I think that people are abducted, kidnapped, whatever, like all sorts of people for really stupid, casual reasons with really no rhyme or reason. for a variety of different purposes. She probably just it sounds like she found herself at the wrong place, the wrong time,
and
whatever. She was just the victim of a really random,
She was a
casual, callous.
I think it could have been random.
crime.
Her mom also has some theories that could hold water. I mean, of course, everybody wants to cry trafficking when something like this happens.
Well, we want to find reasons why this happened. And I think that all too often there is no reason.
There's also there is how systemic human trafficking typically occurs. There are patterns of how something typically occurs. That's not to say that a few rando,
spring breakers wandering alone,
wannabes trying to prove something don't get it in their heads to try to pull some shit and pluck someone off the street during spring break at Myrtle Beach.
Totally.
And try their hand at trafficking.
And her mom also
could
wonders. Her mom
We've
also
all
wonders.
seen Alpha Dog.
Yes.
I don't know what that is.
Her mom also wonders if she was
JTG.
lured down there with the promise of a modeling gig, because she was doing some very low level 17-year-old girl from Rochester, New York kind of modeling where it's local glamour shots kind of stuff.
Right.
And her mom, obviously looking back and your daughter is missing and you're over analyzing every argument you had before your kid takes off to go on a spring break trip that you didn't approve. And her mom is she was so adamant about going down there. I'm convinced that somebody was luring her down there, right? And that instinct could be real, but she also could just be a 17-year-old girl who was told she can't go on spring break with her friends. And she was going to go down there by any means necessary.
Right.
And then a horrible random act of violence occurred.
Right.
And she is now most likely no longer with us.
Also, if you're a
Of
predator,
course you're going to be
Spring
hanging out
break.
around fucking Myrtle Beach at spring break. It's easy pickings.
right?
Yeah.
So
Drunk
it's just
people and whatever.
it's just such a hard situation because there's truly no way to know right now. Not with the information that's been released to the public.
Yeah.
And these private investigators think that they are really close. And I think that there is some potential for corroborating Taquan's theory or Taquan's, allegations
Not
of what
ruling it
happened that
out.
night. We're not ruling it out, but there's nothing solid enough to connect those dots at this point. So this update comes as of May 16th, 2022. Remains of 17-year-old girl who went missing in 2009 found in South Carolina. The investigation led authorities to a site where they believe a 62-year-old man buried her body a day after she went missing. Raymond Douglas Moody of Georgetown is charged with murder, obstructing justice, kidnapping, and criminal sexual conduct in the first degree. Authorities said Moody kidnapped and strangled the teen the same day she disappeared. Quote, "Today marks the beginning of a new chapter. The search for Brittany is now a pursuit of Brittany's justice." And that is a quote from her mother, Dawn. Moody remains in custody. It is unknown whether he has an attorney, or at the time this was written, it was unknown, and CNN was unable to contact his family members. Obviously, we will be watching this case as it unfolds, and just as a reminder, you can send us additional updates that you come across on the contact page of our website, wineandcrimepodcast.com, or email us at wineandcrimepodcast@gmail.com with the subject line, Case Update. So that wraps it up for this week's episode. Thank you so much for joining us, and until next time, bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to Wine and Crime. Our cover art is by Kala Yip, music by Phil Young and Corey Wendell, editing by Jonathan Camp. Our production manager is Andrea Gardner. For photos and sources, check out our blog at wineandcrimepodcast.com. You can follow us on all the socials at Wine and Crime Pod. If you have questions, answers, or recommendations to share, email us at wineandcrimepodcast@gmail.com. Episodes are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. If you like the show, please rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts. It is the best way to spread the word. If you'd like to show your support and get access to all sorts of wine-fueled bonus content, visit our Patreon page. Cheers!